Hello students. As we know that industrial location is very important, and for that there are different concepts associated with industrial location. So today I will take you to a very important and very interesting theory that is known as Weber's industrial location theory. After the session you will be able to understand the approaches to the problem of location of industries, such as least cost approach, Weber's theory, least cost, locational principle, effect of labor, effect of agglomeration, different criticism related to that, and certain other issues I will analyze and let you know. In practice, enterprise locational decisions are based not on the impact of a single selected industrial factor, but on the interplay and balance of numbers of considerations. Since each type of industry has its own specific set of significant plant sitting conditions for secondary activities as a whole, a truly different complex of locational determinants exist. Theories have attempted to define its underlying structure. Economists like Weber, Hoover, August Losch, Vatler-Izzard, and geographers like George Renner and Smith, etc., they formulated various theories of location of industries in 20th century. It must be remembered, however, that the industrial landscape at that time was very simple, with little diversification, having narrow product range and less role of political factors. The central aim of the theory of location is to find the optimal location, the economically best location, the one that gives maximum profits. Highest profits are obtained when the costs are minimum and the revenue are maximum. However, rarely it happens that these situations are found at the same place at the same time. So let me explain you the approaches to the problem of location of industries. Manufacturing involves the assembly and the processing of inputs and the distribution of the output to other points, and therefore presents the question of where processing should take place. Industrial location can be explained in two ways. First, by explaining why certain areas are attractive to industry, and secondly by explaining why certain industries are attracted to particular areas. These two approaches are of course complementary, but they involve difference in emphasis. The first approach, this places the emphasis upon the region and various industries within it and seeks to identify the advantage that the region offers. This regional approach operates at various levels, such as national, regional, and local. In each of these units, there is a pattern that needs to be explained. The advantage that an area offers fall into a number of categories. The presence in an area of suitable sites, favorable climate, easy access to source of power and raw material, and nearness to large market can be considered as natural advantage, which are reinforced as the area developed by acquired advantages, including good transport facilities, commercial services, skilled labor, market organization, and development of subsidiary services. In themselves, however, natural and acquired advantages are not sufficient to explain why industry is located in a region, because regions with similar advantages do not necessarily have the same industries. Now let me take you to the second approach. The second approach to the problem puts to emphasis upon the explanation of distribution of particular industries. An attempt is made, for example, to explain why some industries are located on coal fields, while others are found in ports, or why some industries are highly localized, while others are widely distributed. But these approaches are complementary in that they are concerned with the identification of the factor that affect the location of the industry. It should be noted that all the industries are tied to principle of location that are assumed to operate under all economic system in free market or commercial economies. The principle of ground rules of location are simply stated as: the first one is certain input cost of manufacturing are spatially fixed cost which are relatively unaffected in their amount or relative importance, irrespective of the location of industry within a generalized region or national setting. The fixed costs include wage rates or components sold at uniform delivered prices without regard to distance from producer and standardized rates charged for investment capital. These fixed costs have no implication for comparative location advantages. Other input costs of manufacturing are spatially variable costs which shows significant differences from place to place in both their amount and their relative contribution to the total cost of the manufacturing. Third is the ultimate aim of the economic activity is, as I mentioned earlier also, that is profit maximization. An economic environment of full and perfect competition, the profit objective is most likely to be achieved if the manufacturing enterprise is situated at the least total cost location. Under conditions of imperfect competition, consideration of sales and market may be more important than production cost of fixed best location. Since among the totality of production costs, some inputs are approximately the same irrespective of location, fixed costs are not of major importance in determining optimum or least cost location. The locational determinant is apt to be the cost that is both an important component and of total cost and shows the greatest spatial variation. So, this was the fourth factor which I explained to you, and the fifth one is of course transportation. Transportation charges are highly variable cost. As such, they may become the locational determinant, imparting on unmistakable orientation to the planned sitting decision. The sixth one is individual establishment rarely stand alone. They are part of integrated manufacturing sequences and environments in which interdependence increases as of the complexity of industry's processes increases. For example, an integrated steel company might control ore and cooking coal supplies and at one location operate coke ovens, blast furnaces, steel furnaces and rolling mills and produce structural steel product, steel sheets and finished metal goods. In other instance, linkages between firms may be localized manufacturing in area of industrial agglomeration where common resources such as skilled labor or multiple supplies or product inputs such as automobile component manufacture are found. So, now let me explain you least cost approach. The least cost approach emphasizes the search for the least co-monopolistic advantages with factor is held constant. It assumes perfect competition with no respect to the marketing arising from specific locations. Now, we shall understand the Weber's theory that comes under the least cost approach. So, as I mentioned you that you should understand the least cost approach, and I am going to explain you the Weber theory in this regard. Let me begin the Weber's theory. Weber theory of location of industries proposed in 1909 is the most important theory based on the least cost. Weber attempted to show how the optimum location could be found in a simple situation with two sources of raw material and a market represented by corners of a triangle, and also developed an approach based on the concept of market area. The translation of Weber's book in English in 1929 gave it a much wider recognition. His approach is deterministic and normative. Weber aims to explain the location of industrial activity in terms of three economic factors. The first one is transport cost, the second one is labor cost, and the third one is agglomeration economies. His explanation is based upon finding the least cost point for production. Another assumption was that transportation routes are not fixed but connected origin and destination by the shortest path, and transport cost directly reflects the weight of the item shipped and distance they are moved. The first factor is the cost of raw material, the second is the cost of transport, and the third factor is the cost of labor. The cost of raw material varies according to the nature of deposit, while the cost of transportation raw material depend upon the nature of raw material, whether it is ubiquitous, fixed, pure or gross. All these variations are reflected in the cost of transportation so that regional factors affecting production are reduced to transport cost and labor cost. Weber identified another factor called agglomeration. You may be thinking, what is this agglomeration? Agglomeration economies refer to saving of the individual plants that result from their operating in the same location. This might result from the common use of such activities as auxiliary industries, financial services, public utilities, etc. As more and more firms cluster, linkages increases and there is an increased flow of goods between plants, specialized labor and saving due to bulk purchasing of materials and large scale marketing of products. Now let me explain you to the least transport cost point. To find this point, Weber first sought the least transport cost location, which he considered the most important inference using a locational triangle. Please refer this figure. There are two raw materials M1 and M2 and one consumption point C. The least transport cost point PB is the point at which the total cost of moving raw material and finished product is least. In figure 1, 2 tons of material M1 and 2 tons of material M2 are needed to produce 1 ton of finished product. In a weight losing manufacturing process such as iron smelting, the least transport cost location is near to the source of the raw material. In figure 1B, 1 ton of material M1 and 1 ton of material M2 are needed to produce 2 ton of finished producer, and in weight gaining industry such as banking, a market oriented location is attractive. Now let me explain you to the effect of labor. Weber next examined the effect of labor cost on location, since he considered that industries would be located away from the point of least transport cost to the point of least labor cost if saving is in labor cost were greater than any additional transport cost involved in such a move. In figure 2, P is the least transport cost point, and around this point have been drawn 3 series of isodependencies, that is lines of equal cost or lines of equal transport cost per unit of production from P. There is a cheap labor at L1 and L2 which would reduce cost by 15p per unit of production. The question is whether or not it would be worthwhile for a manufacturer to locate from P in order to take advantage of it. Clearly, any location within the 15p transport isodopaine would save more on labor than would be spent on the extra transport, and therefore L1 would be more profitable position than P. Weber saw labor cost increasing in importance in location because technical developments were increasing the efficiency of transport, thus increasing the distance between the transport isodopaines, while labor costs were rising relative to the other cost. Now let me explain you the effect of agglomeration. Having combined the effect of transport and labor cost, Weber thirdly examined the effect of industry's tendency to agglomerate. Please refer to figure 3, A, B, C, D and E. These are the least cost location, but the firm located there could cut on their own production cost by $1 per unit of production if at least 3 of them operated in the same location. However, they must not incur increased transport cost of over euro per unit of production. In figure 3, the critical isodopan of euro 1 has been drawn round each producer, and it is clear that firms C, D and E could reduce their cost by locating in the shaded area in figure 3. This figure 3 is explaining you the effect of agglomeration on the location. So please try to understand. Weber's theory identifies certain basic influences on industrial location, yet it is open to criticism partly because of certain inherent weaknesses and partly because circumstances have changed since the turn of the 20th century when Weber published it. Many of the assumptions made by Weber are quite unrealistic. For example, transport costs do not rise proportionately with distance and weight. Long hauls cost less per unit of weight than short hauls do. The second is perfect competition rarely exists. Third is man does not always behave rationally. Fourth is the market is in the form of points and one plant serves only one market. Weber's material index was too crude a measure of transport cost which does not rise proportionately with distance and weight. Moreover, transport costs are rarely a basic criteria for the location of firm today. Technological improvements have already reduced the transport cost. Besides, changes in other things such as manufacturing process, international organizations and external link make up the total cost. Labor, particularly of high value and high tech products, is now the most important industrial location determinant. Third factor is that Weber concentrated too much on minimizing cost. He failed to identify the revenue aspect of firm's operation, which also directly affect the profitability of a firm. Therefore, the theory gives an unbalanced approach. A criticism factor was that Weber's agglomeration analysis is inconsistent with the conditions in the modern industrial world. Apart from that, Weber did not take into account many of secondary influences, for example, political, social, human, which have an important effect on the industrial locations. Besides that, market orientation is accentuated by freight rate structure complexities which lead higher cost of transporting finished product. As a result, raw material are often moved nearer to the market to reduce the distance that finished goods must be moved. The seventh factor was that increased complexity of industrial organization. As a single product, one factory private firm is replaced by multi-product international corporation. In these conditions, Weber theory is difficult to apply. Manufacturing is more complex than it was in the early 20th century, as I mentioned it in the beginning also. Many plants begin with semi-finished items and components rather than with raw materials. Producers' goods seldom lose large amount of weight, therefore there are not many tendencies toward material orientation. So I am sure that after this session, now it can be said that location of an industry is vital to successful running of that industry. Industrial landscape exhibit very different types of circumstances that have represented optimum location at one time or the other. Weber's location theory has taken into consideration factors that decide the actual setting up of an industry in a particular area.